What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the other side of the firewall. We talk about the latest and greatest in cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who've made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and today, as always, I'm joined by Shannon Tynes
What's up? What's up?
and LeVon Maynard.
What's up, everybody?
What is the deal? Welcome to another uh, jam-packed week. Cybersecurity news. I'm lying, like nothing crazy happened this week. we got we got
Endless.
got some good articles, but nobody's taking over pipelines or jacking trains. I don't know, like
Potentially.
potentially.
Well, after we go into this, we'll see.
Yeah. But with all that being said, I turn over to Shannon.
All right, everybody. So the topic today is actually from threatpost.com and is written by Lisa Voss, VAAS. I hope I'm saying that right. Could be Vase. I don't know. But critical VMware carbon black bug allows authentication bypass, right? So here's what gets me with this, right? Now, let me go into some of the details first, right? So it's a bug in the AppC server, Carbon Black App Control Management Server, which the job for this server is to lock down critical systems and servers so they don't get changed like crazy, right? Like, so you have your security that you need, right? So the thing about this that makes it so bad is the CVSS score. The CVS score was 9.4 out of 10. Okay, so CVS, Common Vulnerability Scoring System, right? This is how a lot of how all of our vulnerabilities get rated, and the 9.4 out of 10 is what it came away with. Now, this was a video game, and IGN gave it that. You'd be like, oh, that's off the hook. That's not the case right here. Yeah, you'd be like, that's the new hotness, right? It is, but in a different way, right?
Right.
And the reason this is so troubling, right, is because of what this server actually does and how it controls and where it's used. It's used in a lot of I'll say it like this. I'll tell you exactly how Lisa wrote it. As pointed out by Heimdall Security, so Idris Elba is the one that gave it, I guess. So depending on the environment, threat actors could exploit the vulnerability to maximum advantage to attack anything from point of sale systems to industrial control systems. So industrial control systems, right? Think about this. So when we think industrial control systems, right, that's your oil, your water, those SCADA systems. You know what I mean? We just had the pipeline thing, right? We just had that happen. We've had the water treatment facilities in Florida. So VMware is everywhere, right? Like this is the way that we're going in the world now, right? When it comes to like virtualization and things like that. And they actually touch on that a little bit in here too, is they got another one. It's a plus this at the end of the article. It says high risk bug and other VMware products. And this is troubling because of how widespread VMware is becoming, right? Like we want to virtualize everything now and use their products because it's the way of the world, right? Like we're not going to have, we're not going to have rack space to have 10 different servers, when you can use a little like 3U space, you know what I mean, and virtualize and do whatever you need to do with something. But this is troubling to me, right? And really because VMware has done this before, not done this before, but they've had high vulnerabilities like this before. Like they had one back in, I think it was April, that was like a 9.1 or something, right? Again, this isn't video games, so it's one of those things where it's like, oh man, this is the new hotness. No, in a different way, like I said before, right? But we've got to do better with this stuff, man, because this is one of those things where we already know what's going on out there, right? Because my belief now is that because of COVID, like I realize COVID has made it to where idle hands do the work of the devil, right? And so we're seeing all this stuff happening, but seeing how often people are exploiting things out there, I don't think the environment is going to change to where we're going to start seeing less of it. We're only going to start seeing more. Like you're starting to see different things happen to where money being requested and whatnot for cybersecurity from private companies, the government. We may touch on that a little bit later in the week, so stay tuned. All right. So it's a troubling trend, and especially when it comes to VMware because they are so widespread out there, right? Like so. They already patched it. So first off, they already patched it, right? And the only workaround is to patch it. There is no workaround. You have to patch it, but it's been made available by VMware. But this is something that we got to stay on top of, right? Because again, it's from point of sale systems, right? At your local Wawa or Target, which has already had issues with those types of things, to all the way up to our SCADA systems when it comes to our infrastructure type things, which is a big topic in the news now. So, but LeVon, what's your thoughts on this, man?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting article. It's obviously some new vulnerability that's out there. It's kind of like one of those things. I mean, you covered a lot of the main details of it. I mean, VMware is everywhere, uh, and um, obviously, companies have a responsibility to make sure they keep their systems patched and try to avoid these kind of big deal like vulnerabilities. But it's going to happen. I mean, they're going to do so much. I know I'm sure they have a crack team of developers that work on their applications constantly, uh, trying to fine tune them, secure them, um, and add more features and all this kind of stuff. But the fact that they got caught with this vulnerability, like you said, it's a 9.4. I haven't been really tracking a lot of their vulnerabilities, but like you said, they got caught with a couple in the past, and maybe if it becomes like too much of a trend that they continue to get popped for these 9+ level security vulnerabilities, maybe they have to take a second step back and take a look at some of their processes and make sure that they're covering their ends. Um, but I think it's good that they came out with a patch. I'm not sure how quickly they came out to patch versus when the vulnerability was recognized, because that can be kind of a concern depending on how fast they were able to respond. Because I think we've seen some companies in the past kind of take their sweet time, and I think we talked about it before with Google. I think Google and some other companies were setting some standards as far as how soon they would um, notify the public as far as when the vulnerabilities were present in applications and devices, um, to try to give the company the time to remediate before they had to execute on that action. But this is good. I mean, I mean, it's good that they got it figured out. Hopefully, nobody got really impacted. I don't think I saw anything in the article mentioning any specific companies that were affected. But yeah, as long as they are quick to make take action on it, I think it's pretty good. Um, but obviously, we want to make sure we're aware of all these vulnerabilities out here. Make sure we keep our stuff up to date, patched, all the hot fixes and security patches that are available. But what you got on this, Ryan? You have some thoughts?
Yeah, I think you guys covered it pretty well. Like my only concern is like most vulnerabilities like this, uh, most people don't know about them, right? So yeah, the
Mhm.
patch is out there for you to fix it and what have you. But if you don't work
Right.
on the back end, like if you just have a business or a company and you don't actually have your environment on premise, then you gotta hope that someone is back there patching things, taking care of things. Like you
Mhm.
said, this is a pretty big vulnerability because uh, of how it allows you to escalate your privileges like pretty easily. Um, so I'm just they don't really bake in security like they're supposed to, or if they do, then how does this one slip by? Like I think they say it's in an unrestricted registry. Like you just drop this file in here with this name, and then boom, you're God mode. How does that get baked in to the product from the get go? Is it because it's really old and they just been like Lego blocks just piecing on to the environment over time, or was it just overlooked? Like that's a question that's not really answered in the article, but it leads me to be concerned. Like, okay, this is going to happen again, because they can't recall the product because it's being used. Like they don't really necessarily talk about who's using it, but like you said, like environments are getting so complex, and they're moving off premise because we don't have the rack space, we don't have the cooling, all that stuff that will go into it, into these giant data servers. So like it's just being spun up, by AWS services, or is it being used with Azure or something like that? Like are there companies like major companies like Uber or whomever
Mhm.
that's also using these like necessarily products, but they're being spun up on servers in this VMware environment that has this vulnerability. Like, because they're not going to
Right.
patch it necessarily. You have to trust that whomever you're hosting through is going to patch it for you. Um, so there's some concern there, but yeah, it's going to happen again next month.
That's right. That's right.
They'll find another way of getting in. So I mean, it's safer than having it on premise where you'd have a million different companies with this vulnerability and no one in the IT department is patching it. So at least it's consolidated. But it's just it baffles me how these just keep popping up. Like who like is there? I don't know. Like for on our side for cybersecurity, you have threat hunters, right? That's the new thing. Like we're actively searching our environment for stuff like this. Like, don't they have coders that check for bugs? Like, isn't that a thing that already existed? Like, I remember seeing in several social media movies, you have coders who sit there and they continuously generate code. Is there somebody on the back end who scrubs their code? Because obviously I forget which social media movie it was, but like they would just be hanging out there and just doing 12-hour rounds building code.
Right.
Like who's the man or woman who comes behind them doing another 12 hours? Like, okay, this is bad.
Yeah.
This code is trash.
Right.
I take after Chuck D and Flav, man. Don't believe the hype. That's just the movies, man. That's
Right.
that's not the real deal. Like there's no
the
money,
real world.
there's no money to be made doing that, right? Like because we've talked about this before in the past. Like how much time are you going to put into it before you put it out there to the public to make your money, right? So,
Right.
But it's going to become a public trust thing, right? Because like I said, I think it was April when they had the other one that was a 9.1, right? And then they in the midst of going and investigating this one, that's when they found another one. You know what I mean? That it was I think it was like it was the same type of thing. It was let me see,
Like DJ Khaled.
authentication bypass fix. Yeah, and this one local privilege escalation vulnerability. Yeah, there was another one they found in the midst of doing this one. So it's like, yeah. So the NIST hasn't evaluated that one yet, right? Or hadn't evaluated it yet, but VMware evaluated it at a 7.8, which is still a high severity, right? So that's an average game. You know, that's not a dope game like a 9.4. You know,
right? That's right. Yeah, as you were touching on it earlier, I mean, like one of the kind of I guess big thing as far as like software development and like maybe in the IT field right now is DevOps, but now they're kind of transitioning it into being DevSecOps. We try to integrate security aspect of it into the operation, into the DevOps like pipeline as far as like continuous integration, continuous delivery, CI/CD. So it's like that's like an important thing that I'm sure companies are thinking about it, but they want to make sure that they need to make sure that they're also integrating and considering the security aspects of any changes they're making. Because if they're not, then obviously things like this will pop up. If they're like, oh, let's try this new feature, we'll add this new functionality to our software, then all of a sudden it just opens up all kinds of holes and access points for people to kind of connect. So yeah, I just think it's something that companies have to be aware of, and I'm sure they if they aren't already, hopefully their developers are taking that into consideration and maybe trying to spin up on I don't know if there's some knowledge bases out there where they can kind of fine tune their skills to make sure that some common avenues, common like you know common access points for these hackers are like closed up.
Right.
Just make sure they kind of spun up and make sure they stay knowledgeable on the security part of their, because I'm sure these coders are just like, let's get this code out here as quickly as possible. Try to, they have some people, they have somebody look it over as well. Have like a second, perspective on the code, but they may not be thinking about the security aspect. They're just thinking about, oh, is it functioning? Or does it error when somebody clicks on here or clicks on that? But they're not thinking about, oh, what if somebody generates a, an automatic string of code or some sort of SQL like injection type code that kind of causes some sort of function that, just brings the whole thing down or gives, opens up the database and everybody has access to it. So those things that, they have to consider as well.
Right. No, I get that. So I guess we'll see as it develops. Because like you said, it's like DJ Khaled kept finding there's another one and another one. So
That's right.
we'll see what happens
Another one.
next week when somebody takes over. I don't even know.
Yeah, yeah. The next
Sky's
hot
the
one.
limit. But
Yeah.
you know, I guess the patch your systems or try to stay up to date. If you are running VMware or you know that your company's running VMware, ask your DevOps guy. Like, hey, did we patch this one? Did we look out for this one?
Right.
That's all you can really do at this point. And then hope that something doesn't come down the pipe shortly right behind it. They didn't necessarily put the date on this one. So like you said, we don't know how long it was a vulnerability, and we haven't heard of anybody being basically owned because of it. So we may have dodged a bullet on this one.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Like you guys were talking about before, I know like a lot of big companies use VMware, and including the DOD is very big into VMware. So it's all over the place. And it was, if somebody was able to, take advantage of this, then it could have been a big deal because I know a lot of people use it.
Right. So with that being said, thank you, Shannon. Thank you, LeVon. It's always an interesting conversation. The rest of this week kind of so we talk about VMware today, and then tomorrow we kind of go into a department of the government who's asking for more money to shore themselves up from vulnerabilities like this, and then we go into a discussion in which we talk about a quote unquote pen tester catching 7 years for the work that he did as well. So stay tuned throughout the week, and definitely check out the social media. So that's www.theothersidefirewall.com, where you can get to all of our different accounts, which are also in the description. You can also hit us up personally. I'm at RyRy Security Guy. That's RYRY Security Guy on LinkedIn, Twitter, IG, TikTok, and Clubhouse. And LeVon?
Hit me up on Twitter at LeVon Maynard.
There it is. Stay tuned. Peace.
Take care.